Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here. Time for the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for Saturday, the 2nd day of July, 2022. We have Bonnie. Still Bonnie. It stayed with its name even though it crossed over into the Eastern Pacific. Why is it Bonnie and not Darby in the Eastern Pacific? Because that would be the next name in the Eastern Pacific. Because the rules changed in 2000, and when they stay intact, crossing land one way or the other, they keep the name from the basin from whence they came. Does that make any sense at all? It's still Bonnie. That's all that matters. And it's in the East Pac. And we also have Colin, our surprise tropical storm. And we'll take a look at all of these in more detail here as we go forward. So first, here's Bonnie in the Eastern Pacific. Again, it crossed over Nicaragua here. It remained intact, and so it keeps its name. If it had degenerated into a depression, then it would get the next name in the Pacific. That's probably the easiest way to describe it. Here's the track map for Bonnie. It's going to stay to the south of the rest of Central America and eventually Mexico. Probably will become a hurricane at some point out here. It failed to do so in the Atlantic. The models were too aggressive with it early on, kind of overestimating the favorable conditions that we had in the Atlantic. Most of the conditions were there and anomalously favorable, but it was moving too fast, pretty far to the south, had some land interaction, and it didn't get its act together really until just about Nicaragua. Anyway, up here along the Carolina coast, we do have Colin. Colin formed overnight into these the early morning hours of today, but it was around yesterday, and a lot of people were talking about it on social media that, man, this should get upgraded, it should get named. You know, sometimes these things fall through the cracks. The people that do all this, they're only human. And you have National Weather Service products. You have people that tell you what's going on through your local media. So it's not like this was a complete surprise and nobody knew anything about it. You have to pay attention sometimes and take responsibility of looking at the weather yourself. That being said, it finally got upgraded this morning. The thunderstorms and the organization of it persisted long enough that the National Hurricane Center named it Colin today, this morning around 5 a.m. Interesting, too, that the positions here, these are not incorrect. Yes, it was pretty much over land the entire time. It's just now coming back. The center of circulation, when we say it, that's what I'm talking about, is just now starting to come back out over Long Bay, right off the Grand Strand there, not too far south from Myrtle Beach. That's the center of circulation, the low-level center, the heart, if you will. All the sensible weather is pretty much removed from that, which I'll show you evidence of in just a moment as we try to explain this. A fairly interesting system and a surprise system, bringing inclement weather all across this region, kind of ruining the beach day on this 4th of July weekend, Saturday. Sorry about that. It happens. What can I say? It's the summer. It's the convective season. We get tropical cyclones. So here we go. Anyway, over the next few days, it's going to move whatever's left of it off the coast and into the Atlantic. All right. Real quick, shifting gears just a little bit back to the Atlantic side. I don't want to ignore this feature right here, this tropical wave that came off Africa several days ago. It is producing some rainfall finally for parts of the Northeast Caribbean. And I want to scooch this out and show you down here one of our cameras. This is over in San Juan, Puerto Rico, hosted by Carlos at his apartment. Yeah, it's a little crooked. I'll get him to fix it. But look, the streets are wet. Finally, some rainfall down there. Unfortunately, though, not much for our friends over here in the Virgin Islands. This is over at St. John, and this is at Brent's place. Kind of dry. Look at that. Those mountains and hillsides, I guess they're hills, not really mountains. They're brown. Brown. They're supposed to be lush and green. It really is a problem down there how little rainfall has taken place over the last several months, and I'm trying to get the St. Thomas cam to pop up for me. It's just being stubborn. But they need the rainfall down there. You got a little bit here today, in some cases a lot, moving through. The Virgin Islands are off the shot here to the right. By the way, on our new computer that's like right there, you see that little label on there with the Mandalorian helmet sitting on it. We're going to be firing that up permanently pretty soon here. And we got radar scope on there, and I'll do that whole widescreen thing. It's just going to be fantastic. I'm getting a whole new office and studio ready down the hallway a little bit. Story for another day. but that's why my radar scope looks like this right now. Anyhow, heavy rain moving through, and some flash flood issues in Puerto Rico, special marine warning with that orange area. So yeah, you need the rain, but it does come with some impacts. So just be aware of that if you're down there. And if you're down there, you're already experiencing it, and you're like, yeah, we already know, Mark. But I wanted to point it out. At least you're getting some rain, but it could be heavy at times. All right, moving on along to the satellite view today. There's the disturbance in the Caribbean. Some rainfall, like I said. Hey, you'll take what you can get. Sorry about the flooding conditions. What can you do? You can't control the weather, despite what people on the internet say. There's Bonnie. I got to be careful. You step in a giant wormhole and rabbit hole and everything hole if you're not real careful these days. So there's Bonnie going into the Eastern Pacific, and it'll go on out to become a hurricane eventually. And here is Colin. And you're like, well, where is it? Like, most of the thunderstorms are down here. Glad you asked, because we have this. All the stuff that Dr. Cowan, has put together. Very awesome, because we can see the different mechanics of what is going on. The low-level circulation is apparently right about there. But the heavier showers and thunderstorms are all out here. There's a few little cells over inland areas trying to rotate around this general area of low pressure. Bottom line, it is disorganized. It is in an unfavorable upper-level wind environment. Yes, it does have 80, 81, 82 degree water to work with, Fahrenheit. It's got a few things going for it, but it's not going to be a real big problem. But, it's not just about land. And, there's no tropical storm force winds on land. What about all the people that are going down to the beach and want to go boating? Inland waterways, inlets, just into the offshore waters, 4, 5, 10, 12, 20 miles offshore. The sounds, Pamlico Sound, the Albemarle Sound, the different bays that we have. These are important things to take into consideration. That is not just about land. So it might not be doing much where you are. It could be over the water. You get a squall that pops up. Because of this system, somebody's boat gets capsized and you might have a fatality, or the Coast Guard has to come out. It just starts to unravel a whole bunch of bad things. So there are advisories. It is a tropical storm. No, it's not a big deal overall, but it is if it capsizes your boat, or it rains really hard in your travel lane on the highway and you hydroplane and crash. Then it is your problem, and it is a big deal for you. And I always say this, that take the weather selfishly. How will this impact me? And in this situation, that's what you should be wondering. And if you're down at the beach, all this cloudiness and just general yuckiness, well, it's impacting you because it's messing up your $2,000 vacation that you had planned. So there it is, disorganized. It'll move out, and by Monday, at least you'll salvage the 4th of July, and maybe even parts of tomorrow with some better weather. All right, as this loads up, I think it's like 50 frames or something that I asked it to do from Mark Nissenbaum's site. This is the radar out of Wilmington. Now look how seriously disorganized this is. Low-level circulation apparently down here somewhere, but then you've got this little weird vortex right there, a little curlicue doing something here, and then some rotation up here, and then maybe some more spin here. I mean, nah, it's not looking good. These showers are just kind of rotating around. The whole thing is falling apart, and I bet it gets downgraded at some point, maybe even by 5 o'clock. But it still could bring some squally conditions. You never know. You get just a few hours of lighter wind shear and a big cell that comes up across the Pamlico Sound, for example, and there's people out here in boats. That can cause problems. It can. So just be aware of it, and it'll pass hopefully in the next few days. All right? All right. It does have warm water temperatures to work with, 26, 27 Celsius. Let's highlight it where we can see it, Mark. There we go. So, yeah, it's got some warm temperatures to work with. Upper level winds not very favorable, so at least it won't strengthen much, if at all, from this point forward. Okay, looking at it from the GFS perspective, now the GFS sees it, and we use the air quotes there. It's a terrible arrow. Let's try that again. Oh, man, I can't draw today. There it is. That's the vorticity signature. Now that it's there, that is a big tropical wave. You can clearly see the energy with that, and that is tiny little Bonnie down there just off the coast of Nicaragua on the Pacific side, and that'll head on out into the Pacific even more. So let's move this out into time. This is about now, or I'm sorry, later this evening, around 8 p.m. Eastern time. There's Colin and the vorticity signature associated with it. Here's our tropical wave. There's Bonnie. So let's go a little bit quicker now. I'll show you what's happening. This is early tomorrow morning, later in the sunrise area, whatever, just after sunrise tomorrow. And Colin should just open up into a little trough of low pressure by that time, if not sooner, and then it'll move on out so that by the time you get to Monday, a much better pattern. When you don't see a lot of little yellows and oranges, like it's just void of that, that's typically fairly good weather. The vorticity that this shows, the energy there, when you see those colors, that usually denotes some kind of inclement weather, just so you know. Just one way to look at it. Meanwhile, our system down in the Caribbean gets stretched apart and does not amount to much in the next 48 hours. Finally going on out to 72, and then eventually 96 and 120 to get into the first full week of July, nice and quiet across the southwest Atlantic, and it should stay that way with an unfavorable upward motion pattern for the first part of July. Seriously, I think we will have, generally speaking, a quiet July. You can't rule out, and Colin is a great example of this, these little random features that the global models just don't detect. The resolution of those models is not such that they can pick up on these small Colin type storms. All right. So that notwithstanding, if we don't have anything like that, I think the deep tropics should be pretty quiet for the next couple of weeks or so. But I'll be here. We'll still talk about something, even if it's just a quick morning update, the what's up in the tropics, which brings me to this. If you're watching on YouTube, and that's where most people do watch, don't forget to subscribe, like the video if you like it. If you don't, that's okay too. Share it with your friends and family. Let them know what we're doing. And I do have the morning video that I do. You probably know about it by now. It's called What's Up in the Tropics, a much more condensed version of this, where I give you sort of the nuts and bolts of what I'm looking at for the day ahead. And as we get into July, many of those will just be all we do. I'll get up, I'll take a look at what's happening, and in many cases, we're going to probably get that thing down to 90 seconds because the tropics are just going to be dead. And that's a good thing, because in about a month, it's not going to be dead. It's going to be very, very busy, and we're going to need all the prep and sleep and whatever, because it's going to go crazy. It's coming. So enjoy the relative quiet while we can. This is relatively quiet. It could certainly be worse. All right. Well, if you're down at the coast or you're traveling, you're doing whatever for this big 4th of July weekend and holiday, be careful out there. I truly mean that. Without you on the other side of your device of choice, I don't have a job. There's no reason for me to do this without an audience. So in all sincerity, it's great to have you. Be safe out there. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack. That's us. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow morning.